Well, hello, hello, hello. Welcome again to Talent Grind Live. What's
Well,
going on, man? Can you hear me?
how I can hear you
Yeah,
loud and clear. Can you hear me?
I can. We're doing a rookie open again, man. I thought we were better than this. Alex, how are you doing? Nice to see you.
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm down here in Florida, and
Where in Florida are you?
I am in Delray Beach.
Ah,
So
that's on the
between
Atlantic.
between Miami and West Palm Beach. So it's
Ah,
about 15 minutes. Actually, it's not even between it. It's like 15 minutes from West Palm Beach.
nice.
So Mar-a-Lago is on my running. It's on my running route.
How are you enjoying Florida?
I'm good. I'm good. It is interesting. I have been running into so many recruiters here in the week I've been here. I'm like a magnet. So yeah, it's fascinating. Especially people talk about hiring and I'm like, oh, okay. It's like it's hitting kind of everyone. A lot of shipping and freight people down here as well, I bet. And
Really?
they are all like hiring truckers. Apparently that's a big thing that has just like literally stopped. Uh, for a number of reasons. So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've had a good time. How's everything in the Bay Area?
Everything in the Bay Area is going pretty well. The weather is nice. I've been doing a lot of work in the yard. My yard's looking better, and it's still cool in the evening, but then it warms up during the day. It's not just 100 degrees all the time, which is
Yeah,
which is coming. That'll be here soon enough. Soon enough.
1,000%. But yeah, I mean, let's get into it. I mean, you sent me a very detailed topic list, which I'm
Yeah,
actually
I love AI. So I feel let's talk about two different topics I think that we should talk about today, and we can kind of limit this one and try to streamline it maybe to 30 to 45 minutes. The evolution of AI in recruiting for 2025. So the evolution, not just the impact. And then skills-based hiring. So let's talk about this. I've got a little nugget here that recent reports show that while 67% of talent acquisition professionals see increased AI usage as a top trend for 2025, 40% worry that it will make the recruitment process impersonal.
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 But I would have thought that skills based was.
No, we're just talking about the evolution of AI in recruiting.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say. I was like that.
Yeah,
That
no,
doesn't.
evolution of AI in recruiting, right? So they're saying 40% worried that AI is going to make the recruitment process impersonal, and I agree with them. I think AI at the top of the funnel is great to a point. And then you need white glove. I mean, really, if you want to win the talent war, then you need white glove treatment. Like every company should be just fighting themselves to outdo what their competitors do from a recruiting perspective.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think ultimately, I think that just the general mindset has been layoffs in companies, and
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people have very strategic hiring plans. So there isn't what does it matter? Do you know what I mean? Like
It's,
you're
it's,
just gonna fire everyone anyway. Like it's wild to me. I was thinking about that exact topic, what you just mentioned there. Like AI is going to replace a lot of these workflows at least or processes at different parts of the funnel because it's like an excuse for management to not really for now in the short term not have to worry about their retention of staff. You know what I mean? It's like let's just fix our with AI will fix us how we find candidates, not thinking that yeah, dude, we have churn of 5% and we need to grow by 20%, so there's a lot of people we need to hire for and build a pipeline for meh. You know what I mean? I don't know. I feel like yeah, I just think if imagine this was 2019 and we were peaking in tech, would we be having the same conversation?
so was 2019 a peak of tech?
Well, I guess come
Or was it just a spike in the graph?
pre-coronavirus. Well, because 2021 was the
Even
weird spike.
pre-coronavirus, it's a spike in the graph. I would say AI is a peak. And I believe it's bringing things up to a new level. And it's interesting what you're saying here. You're discussing the way it's been until now everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, I see what
But
you're saying.
going back to, I've edited March 13th Talent Grind Live. That should be coming out soon. So it's interesting listening to our old conversations, going back to the original caveat that there's not going to be a whole bunch of $100,000 person companies. There's going to be 10,000 1,000 person companies, or 100,000 person companies, right? And
Yeah.
in that environment, doing business the way that you just described is going to kill you. What's your advantage anymore? Your advantage is the amount of money that you have in the bank and how entrenched you are in your industry and the value that you're giving. So if you're good at all of that, then sure, scoff at AI. But if you're not good, AI and people who can build with it are going to come for you. That's
Oh,
the
totally.
nature of
Yeah,
that's the
1000%.
nature of business. That is the free market.
Yeah. I mean, I think like I definitely am getting a vibe lately, maybe even in the last week, maybe because I've had slightly more time to read. And I'm like, just like it seems like I'm on two sides of it where it's like in one sense AI is just going to AI everything. And I'm not apocalyptic about it, but at the same time I'm like, is there going to be one app that rules them all kind of thing? I mean, probably in every single sector there's probably just going to be one large one because it just makes sense. But like part of me is like it's so obvious for people to like just get into you dip your toes into AI. Like we've been doing this for a couple of months now, and it's like we've been banging the same drum. I find it fascinating that we have that conversation because it's like it's so obvious to me that
Yeah, I
like
really need to put this
I,
content.
I saw a video yesterday. Somebody didn't know what notebook LM was, and I was like, oh my god, come on, man! Like this is like probably in the top three most famous things in the space. Maybe I don't even know. And they were like, oh, I didn't even know you could do that. And I'm like, oh, that's where we are in the curve. You know what I mean? And do you know what I
Alex,
mean?
there's recruiters in the Midwest who are still sending single emails and single in-mails.
As in not even in like sequences is what you're saying. Yeah, yeah, and that's fine. But it's like this is
There are
more
recruiters who are cold calling
urgent.
There's recruiters who are cold calling candidates. I can tell you, hit or miss on that.
I was going to say, are we hating on cold calls? I like cold calls.
I, I don't generally enjoy cold calls. I don't enjoy receiving them, though I'm always nice to people. I've tried doing them. I've received one guy who kind of laughed and was like, you can talk to this person, and it never went anywhere. And it's just generally, I don't think that people want to be bothered, you know?
Candidates, yeah.
Or for sales, I don't think so. For candidates, like calling them up, you don't know where they are in their day. You could be calling them in a meeting with their boss. And you can't call them after hours because then you might be interrupting family time. Like I'd be more into sending them a text message.
Yeah.
Like I do that. I'll send it, hey, listen, you applied, or I don't do that for cold.
Yeah,
That's
I think
that's
you
interesting
need
though.
to kind of like know, so you need to have had at least a conversation in
Yeah, yeah, to
some
send them a
medium.
text message. So you
Yeah,
really like
exactly.
it's email. I mean, people say it and it's true. Like email is still like the number one channel, but it's become very difficult. Anyway, let's go back to evolution
Yeah,
of AI and recruiting. So this is all part of it. I'm working with a new client that's trying to automate GTM with a proprietary AI agent, cheaper, faster, and better. And it's kind of reinforcing what I'm building in recruiting.
yeah.
And what I see in AI, and what I don't understand, Alex, and I'm just not getting to the point here because that's the way that my brain works is sometimes, is that the
Okay.
obvious solution is that a year and a half to 2 to 3 years from now, there's going to be an extreme economy that's going to be booming. There's going to be hundreds of new entrants of companies that are going to be providing unbelievable value
Yeah.
to users. And if you don't see that coming now, you're just going to get caught up in it. And I think that there's a lot of people who've got established places in their industry that are never going to see it coming.
Oh, I mean, without doubt. I mean, like, how could you?
I think you froze. Well, sorry, everybody. Looks like our friend Alex here has frozen. So we'll give him a few minutes. And then if he doesn't come back, we will end the show. But I think I can speak just a little bit more generally in terms of the evolution of AI and recruiting. I've said it before. I don't think that recruiting is going to become this catch all job that it's been for all of history. Um, it's always been kind of like people who didn't really like aspects of HR and people who kind of like fell out of sales like me because they had a hard time. They were really young. They had a hard time figuring out sales in kind of the early era. And so I think there'll be less recruiters who are going to be able to deliver a lot more value and who are going to be really focused on building relationships instead of just this assembly line machine that recruiters have been up to this point. I think that AI is ultimately going to help recruiters evolve and really step up to the plate and be seen as real contributors to the business. And that's not always been the way with recruiting, unfortunately. It's often been looked at as, you know, uh, just a cost center, a core function that needs to be done. Well, if only recruiting could find the right people, kind of I always say it's kind of like a whipping boy type of profession. It's unfortunately, and I think it's overdue for that to evolve. I think it's time for recruiting to stop being the whipping boy. I think it's time for recruiting to really take their place at the table, and AI is ultimately going to allow us to do that. And I can certainly foresee an era where you can market map with the hiring manager in an intake, right? And so we are still just in the foam. We're still just, I just riffed.
I
Uh,
don't doubt that you had an incredibly gregarious 2 minutes without me by yourself.
well,
Just
no, I was just talking. I was just talking generally that AI is going to change recruiting. It's going to make it. It's going to move it away from being this catch-all profession. It's going to get us out of the stigma of just being kind of the whipping boy, like the games that people play inside of corporations. When a hiring manager cannot figure out what type of role that they're working on or what the person wants to, or they're being really ambitious and they're taking two jobs and they're mashing them together and then they're asking you to go out and find something that's impossible to find in the market.
yeah,
And, like recruiting ultimately becomes this whipping boy. And I think that AI is finally going to allow recruiting to evolve to being a strategic partner. And the only way you can evolve to being a strategic partner, let me tell you, it's what it comes down to and everything. It's relationships. The amount of relationships you can develop and manage at scale.
agreed. Agreed.
That's the future. That's the future.
Yeah, it's
Or an
fascinating.
audience. Relationships or an audience. I should say that. That's probably fair. Relationships or an audience.
Well, the audience, by definition, is your ability to market for potential opportunities. So that would make
Sure.
sense, And I think, like you're doing with your Substack and just building the profile on
Yeah.
LinkedIn is obviously like incredibly powerful there. But I
It's
do
a
think
grind.
it is. I do think it's important to bring it back to the fact that ultimately you are your network. You know what I
Yeah.
mean, as a recruiter, and like AI is not necessarily going to actually replace that. Like it's how you utilize the AI is.
Here's something interesting. So the second part of what I sent to you is AI is transforming how teams source candidates, screen applications, engage with talent. But concerns about algorithmic bias and loss of human touch persist. And that's from Korn Ferry. And something really interesting happening today. I'm working with Landbase. I'm helping them scale up their go-to-market function right now. I'm doing a ton of interviews. I'm using Otter to take my notes in the interview, and I work with the AI to get the notes afterward to put into Ashby. And I just started to notice that all the notes were totally positive. I'm like, okay, my prompt is off or something. So I went into the core AI. I went into the core AI and I say, well, listen, can you start, can you also start helping with evaluations being critical as needed? And then it gave me a full area evaluation of me as an interviewer. Would you like to know my areas for improvement and my
In
yeah,
your
would you like to know my
engineering,
areas
in
of
your
improvement, Alex?
go for it. Yeah, tell us. So how could you possibly improve?
Well, this is valid. Sometimes you share too much personal information that could distract from the interview's purpose. Absolutely true. I
But
love I love
I appreciate the context. I'm here for. I love a bit of color. I love a bit of context. You
but
know.
that's the thing about it is that it's a fine line. I love people. I love building relationships with people. And when I get into an interview with somebody and I start vibing with them, which happens a lot with salespeople, I get a little bit too familiar. Sometimes I will maybe overshare a little bit. I'll start talking about what I'm doing. It doesn't really have any place in that interview. And so it's even someone who's been a recruiter. Now, obviously, I'm not in a position. I'm getting back in a position where I'm doing a lot of interviews, but I haven't been doing it for like the last 6 months or so. I've been doing
Yeah.
kind of more executive recruiting, so it's not that same tempo as like high growth startup. We need to go now. So that's that really shows like you've got to keep doing something if you want to say that you're world class and that you're really sharp at it. Because if you stop doing it even for 3 or 6 months, it will dull. Um,
Oh, 1000%. 1000%.
I gave this one candidate feedback because I could tell that he was open to it, and we had a really good moment, and it kind of talked about that. And I sometimes rush through the closing of interviews without confirming next steps clearly, which I think is completely not true because I have the same script that I use to end every single call. And I always ask people if they have any additional questions or answers. So, not that many areas of improvement, but it did point out my fatal flaw. But yeah, I realized my prompt is off. And so I had to insert.
Within Otter itself.
Well, yeah, my prompt is off because I was not asking it to be this. Here's what I added to my prompt. Please make the answers as comprehensive as possible. In each answer, please also include an analysis of whether the answer was a specific one that was answered, that answered the question completely, or if it was a more general answer. Now,
Oh,
just
that's
adding this line into my prompt is going to give me the real core of what I'm trying to figure out when I listen to a candidate's answer. Like, I give you very structured, tell me about a time. When did you do this? Like, I need to know the company that you're at. I need to know what the specific situation was. I need to know what you decided to do. I need to know the action that you took. And I need to know the results that you gave me. And I need you to do it in as comprehensive, streamlined, and friendly way as possible. And sometimes, when you get over the flows of a lot of interviews, they all start to blend into each other. So I
yeah.
think I've not put this into production yet. I've got to do an interview. I've got to put my notes together for an interview I did earlier after this broadcast. But I'll be interested to see whether that'll make an impact or not. I
Do
suspect
you
it probably will.
do you think that the AI notes across the board from all of these tools are pretty generic? I mean, do you think here's a question for you. Do you think it lists the standard, like the average, the aggregate standard of notes for recruiters? And B, do you think that they're actually any good anyway?
Yeah, I do. I think that they're pretty good. I like Otter really specifically. If you give it a really good prompt, you can get really detailed, concise. And I'll tell you people, like, basically, you want the AI to give it to you in the past tense, third person.
Yeah, like candidate said X.
Yes. Yes. Past
Interviewer said
tense,
Y.
third person. That's how I always did my interview notes for years, and people always loved them. And I was always complimented on them, like at multiple companies. I had people who'd become fans of me because of my interview notes, right? And like the AI does my interview notes just as well. But I think the thing is, like, you need to slow down and make sure you fully read the interview notes and append them as needed. And then I
Yeah.
think that you should do your summary yourself in your voice. And I think, I'm going to put this out there. My best practice and what I give to every single one of my clients is I put a link with Otter transcript. They can
Or you
listen.
let them see the notes
Oh,
themselves.
hell yeah, I do. They can listen to the call. I'm working for them. They're paying for me. I'm representing their company. They're entitled to every single bit of information and data.
Oh no! I thought you meant the candidate, not the
Oh no, no,
company.
not the candidate. To
I was
the
like,
to,
whoa,
to the
that's pretty
hiring, but
generous of you.
to the client.
Yes.
To the client.
Well,
There's no
that's where I think
there's
the
no
note
hiding.
takers. That's what I'm
Huh?
saying. The note takers are like. That's why I think they're actually kind of awesome for like communication between recruiter and company, because it's like ultimately you're able to share
Do you know
more
so few
candidly.
recruiters do that? So few recruiters do. With my another client, they wanted to bring an agency in. I ended up filling the position. I just beat this agency over the head in the first call. I took total control. I'm like, listen, you guys have an opportunity, but this is the way that you need to operate. You need to do a full telephone interview on every candidate that you speak with using questions that I supply you. You need to use Loom or an Otter or some type of AI. You need to record it. You need to give me a link to that, and then you need to give me a synopsis and all the answers to these questions so I can easily put them into our system. And like,
Um,
dude, the look of shock in their faces on that VC call, and the way that their leader started sputtering and trying to like regain power in the conversation and put me in my place, when it's like, dude, you're working in contingency. You've got no power.
what?
Because they don't have a candidate readily available to fill the role, dude. They're going to go out and look for someone. And if you're going out and looking for someone, my sourcing team has already done that.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I mean, ultimately, like it comes. That in itself of itself, that story is like the human gumption, ability, experienced, all wrapped into one. Not necessarily like, hey, here's a shiny new AI tool to help us source and vet and schedule and like.
It's all, but that's what I mean. Like, it's a low barrier to entry profession, but it probably shouldn't be, because there's people like me who really know how to do it well and can build systems that can do it really easily.
Well, when we talk about systems, for example, systems are scary, and I say that not to be laughed at by anybody listening. And on the I don't know, right, you know what I mean. But like, what I mean by systems are scary, if you were to say go to like a company, let's say there was a recruiter at XYZ tech startup that's raised $30 million, and they're investing into all their different orgs within the company. And in talent HR, they're like, okay, we want to implement a recruitment process system that you can design. That would be a lovely situation if that actually happened. But as you're probably aware of, it's probably like doesn't happen that way. It's like quite
No, they've
haphazard.
got jobs that they need you to immediately fill, and then
Yes.
you immediately try to educate them about the importance of building process, and they never listen to you.
Yes. And that's the exact same in marketing, actually, Frank. I mean, it's the same in sales, it's the same in everything. It's like,
Yeah.
yo, we need results
When are
yesterday.
people going to learn?
That
Slow down. Give your new leader 30 days to assess and build. Full stop.
lol, if anybody ever got 30 days to actually do nothing but
That's what
do
I would do.
investment. Oh, I know. I mean, it'd be delightful. I'm like, that's the point I'm making. You know, it's
There's
like,
a ton of elder millennial and Gen X talent out there that is ready to be put to work. If you can come up with an idea and you can build an MVP and you can raise money,
I mean, the
you could
market's
be,
flooded with talent.
you
Exactly.
could be
Yeah.
unstoppable. You could be unstoppable.
Like, what, like, if you were, like, I guess like where I'm kind of thinking about this conversation then is like, you know, ultimately anybody within a talent acquisition role needs to be AI proficient now or AI
So that's
fluent.
the thing, right? That's what I'm
Like
saying. It's
that's
it's
like
not a
the
low
last
barrier to entry. It's as of the AI. It's no longer a low barrier to profession entry, because if you're
exactly
trying to
like
come in right now and you're trying to compete, you're going up against me, and I am always trying. I just halved my prices, Alex. I went from $2,000 a roll down to $1,000 a roll for sourcing at the top of the funnel, and because we can do it, we've now built our own AI sourcer. And it's just a matter of time before we integrate it into our platform with a microservice.
yeah,
So,
no, but I mean like that's the thing. So like anybody can come and do that. They just need to go build that now. Like and you're able to offer that and able to offer it at a price that's super
well, yeah,
competitive.
if you didn't raise any money and you don't have any investors and you own the whole thing, you can do what you want with it. Right? That's
Yeah.
just what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is what's happening in the foam. Right? There are people who are building, but they're going to make it to the top. And there's a whole lot of people who are just being washed around, who are going to sink to the bottom. And who knows how long it's going to take them to uncover. And I hope that doesn't reach an exponential number. I hope it's just a minor number of the overall population, because I think if it gets over 25 or 30%.
of recruiters.
No, I mean of people in general. I mean, this is across all industries, all professions. AI is the leveler. Are you actively using it every day? How are you using it? Are you being thoughtful in how you're using it? When you use it, are you second guessing yourself and trying, like I did today, and try to figure out how to make it work better for you and how to make it more objective? Because to me, it's like I want objectivity.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. Like, are you using it? Are you using it better? You know what I mean? Like to like double down, second guess yourself. Really like it's learn. It's like there's kids like I mean, there was an article in the Atlantic talking about everybody in colleges now just using ChatGPT or
Sure, of course
using
they
AI.
are. Why wouldn't they?
But I think that's fascinating for a whole population of people coming into the workplace, because is that now an edge for whatever they're called, Gen Alpha, Gen Z, that are coming in that are actually fluent in using these tools? They're obviously native, like with social, so like they kind of understand like that stuff versus like me as geriatric millennial, you as Gen X, like we're forcing functioning ourselves to be better at these things whilst not being necessarily native to them in a way that say like kids are today. Does that give companies an advantage or an edge, you think, to hire those to like that pool of candidates?
Well, yeah, like early in my career, one time when I was doing customer service, a new customer service guy came in and he knew how to build like a pivot table in Excel. And that dude
Oh,
was
great.
not in customer service for very long. And I was fucking jealous. And I was like, then I need to always be able to learn software. Like when I got a job at Abbott Labs one time for a while. No, it was Hespera, not Abbott. And like do you know brass ring? I'm like, yep, absolutely. And then I just spent 2 days learning it, just probing around the system, just playing with it, and just like, and then I became an expert in it. And then from that day forward, it's like I always try to be at the very tip of what technology is being built. It's one of the reasons I moved to San Francisco. I have friends who are in AI now, and I try to go down to the city. Oh, Alex, I had a really awkward experience at a networking event this week. Can I tell you about it?
Yeah, I am all ears for
So I didn't realize it was Stripe sessions, and it was like it was a Notion and Rippling fun like happy hour, and it was Luma, and you had to request to join.
the Luma invite, the
Yeah,
invitation.
and so I requested to join and was accepted, and I went down there, and it was the only person who had not going to the conference. First of all. I stopped to get a burger, so I thought like between 6:30 and 7 people were coming. No, apparently everybody was there at 6:30.
Always with something like Stripe, they're all there on time. It's wild.
And so I came in late, and everybody was already in a very confined space in groups of twos and threes. And I just skirted the outskirts a few times, grabbed some donuts and cookies, and left. Like it was just, I tried it. It was impossible, man.
But did you network though, which was the whole purpose of being there now?
No, I completely failed.
Well, you know what? The fact that you drove all the way in to do
I took
that.
the BART down there, dude. I drove to the BART and took the BART down.
So
Right?
you know what? Next time you go and you're like, I'll be slightly more prepared mentally, like when I show up, and then it's like, boom.
It's so hard to do it on your own. It's so much better to do it.
Super awkward, I know.
I've got a friend right now. I'm going to speak very generally. He's a very good friend. I don't have that many, which is nice. And he's up for a job that would essentially have him becoming like a AI product agent, attending lots of networking events around San Francisco around AI.
Sounds
Which I
good.
really hope he gets that job, because then I can essentially shadow him. Because it's always easier for two people to go to a networking event than it
Oh,
is
totally.
one
You
person
know,
to go to a networking event.
I agree with that. And I do find networking events actually
And
super
so,
awkward.
how can AI help me with that? So, AI is replacing recruiting, maybe, but are you really finding the best talent just by searching LinkedIn and emailing people, or should you
That's
be
been
out?
proven.
Should you
That's been
be
proven.
out networking? Huh?
Yeah, that's been proven not to be true. Just by sourcing candidates on LinkedIn coldly and passively, obviously it doesn't work. I mean, it works, but that's a volume business, and it ain't going to drive like real material success for you. Like you literally have to go network with where your potential candidates are.
Yeah.
And like I think like that's the thing. It's like you're like it's like God, I feel like we're so labored about this, but I do think it's super important because I think if like recruiters are listening or people in talent acquisition are listening, I mean, it is a human business. As long as you're hiring humans, it's got to maintain its like humanity. Like AI will fix your processes, you will fix your processes, but fundamentally, you are still mano a mano, like you're man on man when it comes to like phone calls. You know what I mean? When it comes to video chats, like you still have to do that work. You know, you have to be likable.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
What's the line? Do you ever remember? Do you ever read Death of a Salesman?
Oh, Arthur Miller?
Yeah.
No, no.
You never want to be Willy Loman, but
I've seen the play and I know the story. I think generally,
the quote.
I'm more of a Glengarry Glen Ross man.
Well, I mean, that's just obviously a cheap knockoff, of
Yeah,
Willy
right.
Loman.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's a line in the book where he goes, they're talking about Willy Loman. I think it was at his funeral or like at the end of the book, and they were like, he was liked, but he was never well liked. And for whatever reason, the line has always kind of stuck with me when I think about like work because it's so cutting a way to put somebody down is to like say, yeah, they were liked, but they were never well liked. That's like the meanest corporate language I've ever heard, because it's like so like I don't know. I find it very mean.
Why was that? Was it because he was more transactional? Because he was a salesperson?
No, Willy Loman, like he was a traveling salesman,
Yeah.
remember? And it just didn't quite happen for him. And he was always traveling. I think he had big ideas for himself and always thought he was like one deal away from like making it. And I'd say that kind of rubbed people kind of slightly the wrong way, and like he lost the job when the son of the owner of the company was like, yeah, like we're done with you now, we don't need you. And then he basically was in denial about
Yeah.
because his
It's been a
whole
long
work
time. It's been a
his
long
whole his whole worth was in the job, and then it turned out at the end that he wasn't really well liked was the line, and it's like, oh, that's just like sucks.
Yeah.
But I think about that a lot when it comes to like networking, you know what I mean? Like you want to be like, I mean, ultimately you got to be liked, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's where your humanity and, going all the way back to what you were saying at the very beginning to the feedback the AI gave you about your interview process. And it's like, maybe you're like chit chatting about your own personal story too much. I'm like, well, for me, actually, I think in an era of succinctness and an era of optimization, sometimes I think that color is super important.
Well,
Like
listen,
if you're trying to sell me in a business, I want to hear.
every single person I interview could be a potential client down the road.
Yeah,
Could be another hire I can help. Could be another relationship that I can build. Like I've connected with people on interviews in just incredible ways and given people feedback and helped them see kind of like what they're doing wrong. Like I had this guy, he was hungry and he was ambitious, but like he mentioned multiple times that he was like this famous basketball player of sales, and he's just rough. He's just kind of like more like almost like a tradesman type who's like now coming into sales and doesn't quite have the vernacular, doesn't quite
yeah,
have, he's just not polished, right? And so it seemed like he was open to it, and he was like, "Well, do you have any advice or anything like that?" I'm like, "Listen, man, like you have everything except the polish." I'm like, "I recommend Toastmasters."
that is good feedback to somebody in an interview.
I told him multiple times, I'm like, Toastmasters. Toastmasters. See, I grew up in a country club environment, dude. So I was around it from like a young
Yeah,
age. Right? I remember early in my career, we would go to meet like this VP, right? My first recruiting job, corporate at Divine. My boss is like preparing me for this VP meeting. He's like super freaked out. Like I never got people who are freaked out about meeting executives. And we take him to the meeting and he's just all over the place. And I was like, yeah, this is the type of guy I see at my parents' country club all the time. Like, I know this guy.
yeah,
I've been around this guy. I know this guy. This guy knows me. And and the same thing happened to me at Dropbox, man. Like everybody was freaked out about going into to talk with Dennis Woodside. He was the COO at the time. Now he's the CEO of Freshworks, I think. And they over prepare and they would freak out. And I just went in. I'm like, I know this guy.
yeah.
And then towards the end, I'm like, oh, he was like, well, I've got to play. I'm like, oh, where are you going? He's like, oh, Aspen for the holidays. I'm like, oh, do they still keep snowboarders off the mountain? He's like, yeah, it's the best. I'm like, I love Aspen. It's the best, right? Like we're walking. It's the first time I met him. We're walking out of the conference room. We're walking down the hallway, just talking about skiing, and like they just kind of like looked at me like, I'm not intimidated by this person. If it was Elon Musk, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Like, they're a human being, they're human. Like, just be confident in who you are, I think, right? So we're completely off topic. But this goes to the evolution of AI and recruiting, right? You need to become a master of your craft. You need to know who you are. You unfortunately have to build your brand, and you can use AI to do it all more efficiently than it took entire companies to do it in the past.
I mean, and you know what? If if there are recruiters listening to this, like large recruiting staffing firms are nowhere near building any form of what we're talking about
No,
at all.
no.
Like it is like we're talking about building, like you can build the systems with in AI yourself, from the sourcing, the vetting, the scheduling, all the way, and you can literally take a week at a time and just figure out the integrations, figure out the workflows, tweak them, and you can stitch it together.
Yeah.
Like in a way that, like, say, like, I mean, I'm very much like simplifying it, but like you telling me that, like, the Korn Ferries that you were mentioning, you know what I mean, are able to build a product like that, like no
No
bloody,
way. No way.
like they just couldn't institutionally. There's probably an appetite, but there's no institutional
There's
ability.
probably like millions of dollars and some other
Yeah,
tech invested somewhere that were never quite took off. That sunken cost fallacy is making them too hard for them to understand.
1,000%. And that's an edge for people like you, Michael, and that's an edge for anybody who's actually willing to listen. That, like, you can be a solopreneur, grow it into a 10, 20, 30, 40, 100-person
Be
business.
as efficient as
You can
possible.
scale, yeah, the efficiency for this, but it all comes back to having good clients. And how do you get good clients? Good networking. And how do you get good networking? Putting yourself out there, which goes back to what we were saying, which is all about being a
Yeah,
bloody.
the evolution of AI in recruiting is it's going to keep less people. It's going to keep a lot of people out of recruiting. And it's going to enable the recruiters who are really masters of the craft. I mean, like, really, dude, I've got another 30, 40 years of work ahead of me, right? Like, just imagine what I'm going to be able to do with AI systems that allow me to really build relationships.
Totally just be like gigantic unlocks for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So next one was skill-based hiring takes center stage. Companies are moving away from degree requirements and focusing on skills and competencies. I think we've mentioned this before. LinkedIn data shows that focusing on skills can increase talent pools by 10x, and the number of jobs listed on LinkedIn that omit degree requirements jumped 36% between 2019 and 2022. And they say, of course, that happens after I get a bachelor's degree and have to jump through all the hoops, even though I had the skills early. So this is my early career, Alex, because I did not have a degree. Companies would hire me as a contractor, but not full time.
Yeah, I mean, it must have sucked, but
It sucked.
like, I mean, I worked at Lambda School where this was the whole product. You know what I mean? Like, where it was like, I mean, quote unquote product, like where the students who had no university backgrounds or degrees, like, how do you get a job in Facebook or Google or something?
Yeah.
It has always been wild to me. I honestly.
So do you think this is a result out of the initiatives like that?
No, I think it's not the direct result, but I think it's an indirect result of like a kind of like the fact that companies like Lambda School existed, or FKA, formerly known as Lambda School, Bloom Tech, or whatever the hell they call it now. Like, one of the things is like, it kind of carried a lot of the narrative of like, we will get you a job at a tech company, even if you work at like a T-Mobile front, like storefront. You know what I mean? We can get you into that job. Whether it was able to do that or not, it basically sent it like a beacon to other kind of coding boot camps as well. It's like, that should be our message as well.
Yeah.
And then because the likes of Lambda School had an over-indexation of underrepresented minorities, say like African Americans, Asian Americans in particular, the large tech companies saw that as a way to partner with them, like Google being less than 3% African American, for example. And in particular in engineering, it's like, wow, you guys over-index on women and you over-index on African Americans. Like, we would love to like have you guys as a pipeline. So all of a sudden you have like these companies that used to have incredibly detailed sort of like collegiate kind of needs, like you needed to have, master's preferred, all this kind of stuff, all these different kind of degree requirements. Now, not necessarily true, because something like need outweighed preference. And I think that's what's kind of happened across the board now, to answer this sort of thing you're saying, which is like the need for talent, the war for talent is just so hot that like, man, like figure out a way to find good people. You know what I mean? Like, don't worry if they went to college or not. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's kind of like where we've kind of landed. But that would be my sort of like take on that. What do you think of everything I just said there?
Yeah, no, I mean, do you ever read Seth Godin has this great,
Love him.
he's got this great um, thing about education. Are you familiar with that one?
Um,
Is Education
I mean,
Manifesto?
he's had like a
Is
million books.
Education
You know what I
Manifesto?
mean? Like,
Stop
what?
stealing dreams.
Stop stealing dreams.
Yeah. That fundamentally changed me in so many ways. He's absolutely right. To summarize for people, essentially, the educational system of this country was built after World War II, and it was modeled around how they scaled up the military. It is command and control. It is rote and recite, and it is move people through the system and get them what they need so that they're moderately equipped for the task at hand, which is now entry into the world.
Yeah,
It's
but
not equipped for so I'm not encouraging my kids to go to college until they absolutely know what they want to do with it.
oh well, I think that's a different thing where it's like in this country the cost of university, even though you live in California, is like so wildly disproportionate to the expected value outcome that it's like,
With
yeah,
this
you should.
move to skills-based hiring, I can just tell them how to develop all the skills they need for whatever they want to do.
Yeah, but in an era of engineering and AI overlords, the
And
humanities will find their way back to being important again. Like
you know,
reading, history,
sure.
like
Well,
the art.
when you're older and you can appreciate it and you're going to do something with it.
Well, we should hope. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, I mean, I'm not an expert on obviously like university or like paying for it. I mean, having gone and in Ireland, luckily it was inverted commas free. So
Listen, I blew 10 years partying, okay? And
yeah,
I don't
like
want my
I spent 5 years.
I don't want my kids making the same mistake that I did, Like it's just if you got stuff that you want to get out of your system, then go travel for 6 months. Get
But
that
I do
energy,
think that
you
I
know?
do think the skills based hiring though is an important discussion because I think like we've talked about it there indirectly in the sense we talked about AI and how we would ask people like how good are you at AI and how do you formulate questions for people in the interview process that you're like tell me about your how adept you are at AI, like is in what have you built on Claude, have you built an
Yeah.
integration and whatever.
Have you even built a project in Claude, right? Like,
Yeah,
have you ever experimented in N8N, right? Like, that's
yeah.
what I would tell people now. Like, you want to get a job, learn N8N inside and out.
I mean, I have it actually open in front of me here because I'm like actually I'm playing around with a few things at the moment to figure out how to do. It's breaking my heart,
Our
but
system is working.
I'm trying to do it. You know what I mean? I'm trying to learn how to do it. And I think, when it comes to skills based, you know, to quote Glengarry Glen Ross, nice father, go home and play with your kids. You know what I mean? It's like, what you brought up Glengarry. That like, when it comes to like, say, thinking about like skill, like what is the only skill that's going to matter now? Like, I mean, there's a bar now where it's like I expect you to be able to use AI, but that just implies to me that your interpersonal skills will be as important. Like, are you a dick or not? How good are you at communicating with the people around you, what you're doing, what the success of the work you're doing is, how long it's going to take. So like, if anything, it's kind of bringing the humanity back again, that like you need to be really good at being a good person to thrive if the bar is being raised for
What,
everybody to know that you're going to use
wouldn't
AI.
that be an awesome freakonomic effect of AI?
Yeah, that it's making people more human. Like to be the
Like it completely exposes toxic politics and like ass kissers and people who are playing political games in companies, and it identifies the doers who are maybe not the best self promoters in a more of a meritocratic fashion and elevates them.
that is a great shower thought.
Yeah.
Because I like in my head, I'm like, yeah, like would it get rid of like office
Listen,
politics because there's no bullshit?
I've helped dozens of companies get built, right? From super large corporations to small startups. It's absolutely the quality of your people. and you don't really know the quality of your people on an emotional level and like how they were raised. Like if they're a dysfunctional family, they're most likely a dysfunctional person, and if they get into a position of leadership, they're going to build a dysfunctional department. And that's just the real world. That's what happens.
I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's wild. I
It's
mean,
wild. That's why every company, you can't build one recruiting system that works for all companies because every company is different. They're fiefdoms. Like you can give it
yeah,
the overall structure, but you gotta have somebody who's going to dial in that system for that company, who's going to learn that company, who's going to know what their people need, know what the culture is. You can build solid fundamentals in, you know, and so that skills. I mean, that's someone could come and apprentice with me, right? And
yeah.
over a year, I could tell you how to be like a pretty incredible recruiting operations manager, right? Building systems, why we do things the way we do, what happens if we don't do things the way that we're supposed to, what happens down the line that's going to break because you didn't do this.
1,000%. I mean, I think that's kind of like amazing, frankly. And I mean, you probably should find somebody to intern with you for a year to learn that and document the
Well, if
journey.
anybody ever wants to, just reach out to me, right? No, really, because I could, but I guess when I'd rather pay someone. So I think when I have a position where I need someone helping me, I've got top of the funnel all the way down to final interview so streamlined now, dude.
That is.
I could basically be a,
Offline,
I think I
offline, offline. I want you to show that to me. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
like as a final thought and as a final plug for Team Source Services, we can run recruiting operations for you for a nominal fee and bring you up to a world class level almost instantly. So feel free to reach out to me. Alex, man, thank you very much for joining me today. It's always good talking to you. And thank you all for joining us. Have a great day.